Hello everyone and welcome back to a new series where today we're going to be starting up Nomifactory. Now, if you don't know what Nomifactory is about, it's basically a quest-driven expert pack mainly focused about tech. And not just any kind of tech, Greg Tech, which is the main mod that you're progressing throughout the pack. Now, while this is primarily a tech mod pack, there is in fact a goal rather than just playing through Greg Tech that is not just the only thing you do. Your main goal, or the penultimate goal of this mod pack, is to create the creative vending upgrade, which is basically just allowing you to play creative mode and survival, just infinite resources. But of course, to actually get to that goal, it isn't the easiest thing in the world and requires a lot of effort. Thankfully, Nomifactory gives you plenty of tools to make it a lot easier to progress through the mod pack and to make things snowball a lot faster than you would otherwise be able to. Now, of course, this is all well and good, but unfortunately I am quite inept, so we're gonna see how well I can progress through things. Hopefully I'm able to be actually efficient, though we'll see how I actually progress. I think before I loot any further, this is gonna be the area I'm gonna set up as my base, just so that way I don't have like too full an inventory while going out and looting. That's the main hope anyways, though I'm still probably going to get a full inventory while looting. I think the first thing I'm going to do is search all of the surrounding, buildings here in the Lost Cities. Then we're going to go searching for ores, and we'll hopefully get some good ores in a decent fashion, or timely fashion. I think one last thing I'm going to do before I leave too is set a waypoint, so that way I know exactly where to go for my base. I don't really want to be drifting off into the woodworks only to find I have no idea where my base is. So I was gonna start my trek, a little late in the night. Kinda lost track of the time, so I didn't really want to wait for daytime to start searching either. And before I start searching, I need to take my scanner along with me. It's quite imperative I do so that way I know where ores are. Like for instance that. And I also need to get a shovel so it's easier to actually breach through the ground. Alright, well, take 2 on that whole exploration thing. Oh, hello there. Nice to see you this early on. We actually get your rod too? Okay, that's going to be helpful for later on. I'm pretty sure we're going to need that for some recipe. I remember something needing one of the elemental blazes to go faster. And not only that, but we find a meteorite too. I can't breach it yet because I need diamond mining level, but good to know that's there. And I think, hello there. I should probably mark that on the map too. What the hell? Okay, there we go. This is a very small meteor, if anything. We can almost, breach through to the chest in, maybe 1 or 2 blocks or something. That is kind of crazy. I usually see it being a lot thicker than that. So it's been a little bit, and we've successfully scouted the surrounding area. Now, while I wasn't able to find all of the resources I was looking for, I was able to find a good chunk of them, so, that's at least a starting point, right? We can still go back and look for some more, but we'll be doing that in the future. For now, though, we've got the quest line to look at. Something to keep in mind is that this first quest wasn't done earlier, and that's because I've smelted up some iron. Not too much, but just enough so we could hopefully get, like, through the first couple of quests here. But yeah, pretty much how this questing book works is that everything will be locked like this or whatever, and either you won't be able to see it like how it was earlier, how this, like the Some Starter Tools quest, was locked, and then they'll slowly unlock and reveal themselves, and then you can actually click on them and see what's happening. You can't click on them if they're grayed out. Nomifactory does give you some useful information, like on the side here, so if you're lost as to what to do, it definitely helps a bit to read through this. So, first things first, what we really need to do is get worktables so we can actually craft all of the intermediate products and everything. So in order to make a worktable, we need a book, crafting table, and chest, which unfortunately is somewhat annoying. Thankfully though, we did but we did find some books in the Lost Cities that we gathered earlier, and we've got some chests, so thankfully this won't be too difficult to craft a couple worktables. We won't craft too many to start out with, but just enough to get us going. That should have been it, right? Oh no. Nah, there we go. Just had it reversed. And we'll place them like in a row like this, so that like just right behind it so it's easy to just 180 to what we need. So basically how a worktable works is you've got your crafting grid, and then the saved recipes on the right, and then your like resource pool on the bottom. So for instance, sticks, you craft it, and now it's saved, and if you right click it you can lock in the recipe so it'll never disappear. Essentially, if you craft too many things in here, it'll slowly start deleting the last recipe as it pushes it to from the left to the right. And you can never really get rid of a recipe that's already existent, at least as far as I know anyways. So now with that out of the way, the next thing to do is get our Some Starter Tools, which is all of these things here, which is basically just to help you craft all of the intermediate products for GregTech. So let's start from the top of the list and we'll work our way to the bottom, getting all of the tools crafted. To start out with, we need our wrought iron hammer. Then we need our wrought iron file. Next, we need the wrought iron saw. After that, we need the wrought iron wrench. And then we need the screwdriver. After that, we need the wire cutter. And lastly, we need the mortar. Well, and there's the quest for getting all of the tools. Oh, and we also get a quest for proper tool care, I guess. Oh, because we picked up an anvil. So now in the quest line, the next things we need to really do is pretty much just get more materials, which is just rubber and, well, redstone primarily. I really need to get more of that. Something also helpful is the quest book will tell you on the left here, like in this tab, where you can find these veins. It doesn't tell you where to find all of the GregTech veins, though, so you'll need to look some of them up. Well, now that we've got all those tools made, I want to put them into the worktables. We're going to be mainly using this one for plates, and here I'm actually going to make some signs to label them all, so that way I know what is what. I think for now we'll just have a plates worktable here, and then for rods that should take the file, and then for whatever else we need we'll expand upon it. So yeah, we'll get the rest of the resources we need, which is mainly just redstone and some rubber, which we can get from the rubber trees, the lighter colored leaves and stuff. Thankfully rubber is so easy, all you really gotta do is just that, and now you've got rubber. As much as I'd love to get redstone as easily as that, I won't really be able to, or at least on my end I won't be able to. It'll be fast for you. Well, we finally returned from our mining trip with quite a few resources, but definitely not enough. So once again, we'll probably be doing more mining, but that'll be after we get some more quests done. And speaking of quests, we should be able to get, the first one done. Yeah. I was getting pretty much all the materials smelted there, so we could at least progress through there. And then there's more to worry about from there, but the first thing to do is this quest here. So we need iron dust, copper dust, and then red alloy and conductive iron both just need redstone. Ah, here we are, the raw iron mortar. I want to make sure I have that, because this is going to be for dusts. And we're going to put you in here, so now we're going to be making iron dust. Pretty simple recipe, all things considered, but it is slightly annoying you even have to use some of the iron mortar's durability. And how many? We needed 32. Okay, so I don't even think I have enough iron in there for that. And since we're also going to need copper, how much? We needed 14. Okay, well, that isn't nearly as bad. And we already had 2, so we just needed 30 for here. Unfortunately, just doing anything with the mortar absolutely destroys its durability. The raw iron mortar is not exactly the most durable thing ever. I should probably get a, anvil so I can repair that. I did see in the quest that it said I could actually repair it. I never actually went out of my way to repair it. Does it use XP to do that? What do you mean that doesn't work, game? What? Okay, well, ignoring that, let's just continue to progress through our quest. So now that we've got both of those... Okay, I actually need to make sure I pick it up so the quest, acknowledges that. Now we need to make the alloys. And then we'll just throw in all of our redstone. And we need 4, I believe. 1, 2... Oh, what the hell? Game? Oh, it's actually just 1. I think it's, 4 for the copper that we need. And we need all 32, right? Yeah. And we also need to get the copper. So we need red alloy from this, which is... yeah, there it is. Just that. Either way, not too shabby. I'm probably going to want to use mini coal so I can actually smelt the red alloy so I don't waste anything. So yeah, main thing at this point is smelting your dusts. So the quest wants you to get the raw materials, then you want to craft the intermediates or whatever, your dust components. And then after that, you just want to smelt them down. And you want those because you need red alloy for components for later, and you also need conductive iron. Conductive iron's important because you need that in order to transport energy. So while we're waiting for conductive iron and all this to smelt, and I made another furnace because I was just too bothered to wait for these to smelt. But when you get a stack of an item, you'll usually, or most times, get a quest, and that's here in endgame. So basically, much later on in the game, you need a shit ton of each material, and when you get a stack of an element, you basically get a quest reward and a free omnicorder, so I would definitely check back here from time to time, because it's basically free coinage. The more important thing to remember, though, is that you're going to need a fuck ton of all of these materials later on. Nearly there, and okay, there's our last ingot. Now what we've got to do is we've got to convert these into plates, and then we've got to convert those into wires, because the recipe for the wires requires the plate itself, which, by the way, is incredibly inefficient. Unfortunately, we don't really get a better recipe for all of these until later, because right now it's 2 ingots to 1 plate, but if you want to get 1 ingot to 1 plate, you need a machine or whatever to do that. Can't really do it just yet. And now we get our wire cutters, and we'll make this one our wire or whatever, whatchamacallit, what are you even called again? Worktable? Yeah, that's what you're called. So yeah, we make you our wire. There we go. And then bada bing, bada boom. Well, once we actually put in the recipe. Or not. Is it like this? Okay, there it is. And we also do it like that. And now we've got all of our cables, right? For the quest. Detect. There we go. Well, I think the first thing to work on is fluid conduits, which just needs glass and conduit binder, which thankfully isn't really too expensive. It's basically the same materials as you would need for grout in Tinker's Construct. So, instead of trying to find the recipe in the thing, I'm just gonna do this. Conduit binder, there we go. And then we just gotta immediately smelt you up in order to get the conduit binder. Oh no, your conduit binder composite to conduit binder. And then the other thing we need to get for that is glass, which not exactly the hardest thing either. Both things just basically at the bottom of rivers. Do I not really have much of any coal? Alright, we should have, yeah, we have more than enough glass and conduit binder at this point. I mean, we could wait for more, but I'm not going to. We should just need 1 for the quest. Yeah. Now we need to get our infinite water, which isn't really the hardest recipe either. Thankfully, most of the recipes at this point are pretty cheap, but they definitely get more expensive pretty quickly, too. I mean, I say it's pretty cheap, but this is definitely not the cheapest at, like, using 2 plates to one thing. And we also need a bucket, that's why I'm making the iron plates, because unfortunately, in Nomifactory, the recipes, like for a bucket, the recipe got changed to needing iron plates and a hammer now. That's just one important thing to keep in mind. Like, if you want to make iron bars or something, for instance, like, that recipe got changed. Like, that is more annoying now. Though, to be fair, I suppose that's in the name Expert Pack, so what could you really expect? We actually needed 2 of those, so let's make sure to make more. Oh, I need to put more of my iron in. More of my iron in. I could, like, actually speak properly. The Lethal Company issues are seeping into these videos, too, now. Alright, and now we can make our infinite water source. And the nice thing about this recipe, too, is it doesn't consume the water. The buckets themselves. It uses the water, but not the buckets. And just like that, yet another quest. You know, looking at the amount of resources I still have, we might actually be able to get the Steam Dynamo as well. So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to lock in on making the Steam Dynamo, and once we've got that, we're going to switch gears into preparing to move to the Void Base. So to make a Steam Dynamo, you've got quite a few, like, complicated components, but once you break them down, they're not too bad. The most annoying part is going to be getting silver, which, do I even have any silver, actually? I have 1. Okay. By the way, to use the JEI as a search bar like that, you just type in whatever you want, pretty much, so silver, and then you double left-click it, and it'll change it to yellow, and you can actually search it. And this also for, I don't know if I said this earlier, but like how I'm pinning things on the left here is you press A, and then it just gets pinned there. And when you hover over it on the left, you can press A to get rid of it. Not too shabby. Thankfully, the recipe isn't the worst thing in the world. So basically, how a Steam Dynamo works is you've got your fuel source here, and then you've got water, which is basically your coolant. Or rather, not even your coolant. You need the water in order to create the steam for the dynamo in the name. But yeah, basically, it just uses that, and then it just slowly produces around 40 RF a tick, which isn't too bad, but not great either. And you'll notice how it has the coil, like, sticking up, like, with that red component there. Basically, that's the output side, and every other side is, like, more of an input thing type. So as you can probably guess, when we get our, like, conduits, you'll be placing it on top like that in order to connect them. But that'll be, like, a future thing. And in order to quickly grab your Steam Dynamo, what you're going to want is a wrench, which is in the quest right here, actually. There's a crescent hammer and a Yeta wrench, which is basically just the, like, wrench for 2 different mods. The first thing we're going to make is the crescent hammer, and then we're going to make the Yeta wrench, which, all in all, aren't, like, the worst recipes. I'm kind of surprised they didn't even change the crescent hammer, like, recipe. That is pretty much default, I'm pretty sure. Either way, though, in order to pick it up, like, easily, you just shift right-click, and then you get your dynamo back. If you want to change the direction, you just right-click, and I don't think there's any specific way to change the direction it's going. It'll just go, like, in this, like, set direction. If you've got a conduit, like an energy conduit nearby, though, it will usually, like, instantly connect to it. I think it is now finally time to get everything packed up and moved over to the Void Dimension, and once we've done that, we'll start progression again. Alright, well, it's been a little bit, but we finally moved over into the void base, like 100%. The main goal before this, like, episode is done is to at least get into LV. I'm hoping I can get that. Now, the main thing to get to LV is to basically just progress through the quests and get, like, these and all that for circuits, but before I do that, the first thing I want to focus on is getting these furnaces constantly stacked up and, like, outputting, like always. So the number one thing we would need to do that, to output everything is hoppers, at least for the early game. Which thankfully is easy enough to make. It's just iron plates and chests, which, to be fair, chests aren't like the, or not chests, iron plates aren't the cheapest thing at this point, but I think it's worth, if it would like actually click into there, I think it's pretty much like worth it to do. And we needed 7, so we need to make sure to get 35 plates, I believe, and right, it like halves it, so I definitely need to put in more. Now with those hoppers added, we've got an output for all of the furnaces leading into a storage crate as the output, like the container. And while we've gotten that done, we still need to fuel them, which we're going to need even more hoppers for. So now we want to place all of these hoppers facing into the furnaces like so we can actually fuel them, because when you place it like on the side like this, that's how you actually get fuel in, like that's your fuel import. Because if you import from the top of furnaces, that's your like actual item import when you're using hoppers. So in order to actually fuel all of these furnaces here, I don't want to use like a charcoal or coal or anything like that. I want to use sugarcane actually. And I've gotten all of the materials already prepped up so we can just make the device. Alright, well I believe this is pretty much the completed structure for my sugarcane. So essentially how this works is it's like a normal sugarcane farm, so you've got an observer observing the block update when a sugarcane grows up to there. It gets pushed by the piston, which is pretty simple redstone in the back. I just placed down a bunch of dust. It does that, and then it just gets collected underneath by the minecart hopper. Not exactly the most complicated thing in the world, but this should work well enough in order to get our sugarcane everywhere. And, you know, normally I thought you had to use a timer to get all of this to like grow, but apparently with redstone conduits from Ender.io, if you just click output, it just grows. So not only did I not need to make all of these conduits, because it grabs multiple blocks at the same time. You can literally get 3 at once. So all I really need to do, output there and output there. All I needed was 2 conduits, and that was it. And then the minecart will come over, it'll pick up all the sugarcane, and then it'll get deposited in all of these furnaces. And this is basically the same setup that we're going to be using for the power as well. Because if you recall, Steam Dynamos, well, they need a fuel source, and that's going to be coming from there. The only annoying part is probably slow minecart speed when it gets there, and also storage after a certain point, because we don't exactly have infinite storage here. Okay, that's an interesting bug. I'm sitting here trying to still get this to work with me, and there's gotta be some mod that's doing that, because there's no way that's normal vanilla mechanics. What the hell? Okay, so after spending way too much time completely redesigning this and wasting materials, we finally got something that should be actually functional. So essentially, you've got your sugarcane deployer or like breaker at the top. It'll automatically grow the sugarcane like we had in the previous design. Except this time, it'll just go into one hopper minecart, which will then feed through these hoppers, feeding all of these furnaces, which are in the back. They're all connected. And if all of these are full, then they'll go straight into the drawer and just get voided. And if we go and look in this furnace, or whichever furnace is currently being filled up, you'll see it slowly get sugarcane, although it might just be the hopper right now. Yeah, it's just the hopper. Alright, now that we finally got this contraption out of the way, I think it's finally time we start working on other parts of the quest line, which is mainly electronic components and stuff, which is resistors, vacuum tubes, and coded circuit boards, which is the next quest here. Essentially, we're going to be needing so many of each of these components that it's basically imperative that I start making more work tables. Yeah, like that. Because we're going to need 1, 2, 3. Because we're going to need for the resistors, vacuum tubes, and the coded circuit boards. And vacuum tubes need glass tubes, so that's why we got another work table for that. And if we ever need any more work tables in the future, we've got these 4 at the end, so we'll label those 4 now. And before I forget, we actually need what's like the sum of all of these components, which you're making a primitive circuit, or your very first circuit. So we'll make sure to add one more sign here at the end, just for the tier 1 circuit. Before we continue to add more signs and everything, I think I'm just going to put a sound muffler on this damn thing, just so I don't have to hear it. Since the main noise that was being played from these two was literally just the piston itself, that's all I'm muting in it. And the main reason we're going to need so many of these components and everything in circuits is because we need these for the basic machines to get started in this mod pack. So the first component of circuits is resistors, which requires copper wires, paper, and coal dust. You'll see in the recipe too, there's fine copper wire, which is basically just a wire mill, just putting a copper wire through a wire mill, but we don't have access to that yet. And the main reason I point that out is because it's a more efficient recipe. Something important is to always make sure to, like, when you're making these components, you want to make sure you have a lot of components to just batch craft them, because you really want a lot of these. So the next component is vacuum tubes, which are pretty similar with the recipe, so you need paper and copper wires again, except this time you need a glass tube, so instead of needing coal, you need glass. Now, in order to even make vacuum tubes, you actually need glass tubes first as one of the components, so we'll make sure to put in this recipe and craft up some of those. And now for the vacuum tube, we just need glass tubes, copper wire, and paper. I don't really have much copper left at this point, so we're just going to have to take what we can get. And now for the final crafting component, circuit boards, which are actually incredibly simple. They're just wooden planks and rubber. So thankfully when you're making circuit boards, it's really easy to batch craft them, and just like that, that's the most out of any component we have. Now of course, when you go to make a circuit, while you need all of these components, that's not all that you need. You also need red alloy cables, and you need a wrought iron plate. So thankfully the wrought iron plate's simple enough, since all we really need to do is just take our wrought iron, smash it down real quick, and bam, now we can get 4 circuits. Well, rather, we can only get 1 circuit because we need 2 vacuum tubes per circuit. And for the final component with red alloy cables, well, if I don't accidentally click it out of the recipe, you need red alloy and rubber sheets, which you basically just make a plate out of rubber. Something to keep in mind about this wire recipe too is that you can actually do it in your crafting grid. Not every cable will allow you to do that. Like for instance, if you try to make, like, let's say aluminum cable, you have to use an assembler to make this 16x. And now that we finally got the red alloy cable out of the way, we can make our very first circuit. Unfortunately, as much as I would like for that to be the quest, we still need to get rubber sheets apparently, because you need to get plant balls, so I guess we got a detour for that real quick. Thankfully, the plant ball recipe is literally just like 8 saplings, or really much organic of anything, and then you just smelt it, and then you've got your, like, what, rubber? Yeah, that should just be it. Alright, now we grab our slime, and there's that quest, and hopefully we get the next one? No, we need 7 cables. Okay, now with these rubber sheets, we should be able to make all of the cables, and yet successfully detour. Now we've got our first circuit. And now we've got one more quest, which is to just get conductive iron energy conduits, which is also just pretty simple. And actually, we can literally do that right now since we already have all the materials for it, so might as well do that. And the reason you need this is to actually transfer the power away from the Steam Dynamo. So how this is going to work is it's essentially just going to be a hopper feeding straight into a Steam Dynamo. And let me make sure to do it like this. So then we get our hopper, and it takes away from the sugarcane there. It'll feed into our Steam Dynamo. And in order to get water into here, we just use our infinite water source, place it right next to it, and it'll slowly fill up. And now for the very last step, we just place our power source. Although we do need to rotate the thing. We can't actually do it with this kind of wrench. We need to get our crescent hammer, or yet a wrench. They should both work. Okay, you didn't automatically rotate where I wanted. But either way, it gets fed sugarcane, it gets automatically fed water, and now we're producing power. So I think at this point, all we really need to do is just start getting our CEF built and then start getting like machines created. Unfortunately, to really do that, I'm definitely going to need more resources, but it is going to take quite a while to do that. Which I think is going to be a task for next episode, as it's been quite a while already. Well, thank you all so much for watching this video. Hopefully next time progression goes just as smoothly. And until then, I'll see you next time.